At 6:12 on the morning of the Valenti wedding, Elena Marlowe found blood on the bride's veil. Not a stain from careless handling, not lipstick, wine, or red dye from the imported roses surrounding the bridal suite. Blood. 3 dark drops marked the lace near the hem, already drying into the ivory threads. Elena stood alone in the penthouse suite of the Belladonna Hotel, one hand gripping her clipboard, the other holding the veil beneath the pale light of the window. Far below, Manhattan traffic moved through the wet streets. Inside the hotel, 180 guests were expected by sunset, including judges, senators, financiers, and men whose names never appeared in newspapers unless someone had died. The groom was Dante Valenti. Officially, he owned shipping companies, luxury hotels, and half the private security firms on the East Coast. Unofficially, people lowered their voices when they said his name. Elena folded the veil carefully and placed it inside a clean garment bag. Then she locked it in the bedroom safe. Panic was a luxury for people who did not have schedules to protect. She checked the room again. The marble bathroom was spotless. The balcony doors were locked. No broken glass. No sign of a struggle. The bride's shoes waited beside the bed, each silver heel aligned with military precision. But the bride herself was missing. Camille Ashford had skipped the previous night's rehearsal, claiming a migraine. She had ignored Elena's calls since midnight. Now the woman's phone sat on the vanity, plugged into its charger. A phone left behind was not an accident. Elena opened the call log. The last outgoing call had been placed at 2:03 a.m. No name, just a number. Before Elena could photograph it, someone knocked 3 times. Not the brisk rhythm of hotel staff, slower, deliberate. She locked the phone and crossed the suite, her heels silent against the carpet. "Who is it?" "Mr. Valenti." The voice came from the other side of the door, low, controlled, without impatience. Elena opened it halfway. Dante Valenti stood in the corridor, wearing a charcoal suit with no tie. He was taller than she expected, his dark hair combed back, his face composed with the severe stillness of a man accustomed to receiving bad news without reacting to it. A faint scar cut through one eyebrow. 2 men waited several steps behind him, both broad-shouldered, both watching Elena's hands. Dante's gaze moved over her navy dress, her emergency sewing pouch, the clipboard pressed against her waist. Then he looked past her. "Where is Camille?" Elena did not step aside. "I was about to ask you the same thing." One of the guards shifted. Dante remained still. "She was assigned this suite. She isn't here. Did she leave a message?" "No." His eyes settled on Elena's face. "You're not frightened." "I'm working." "Those aren't opposites. They are before breakfast." Something nearly changed in his expression, not a smile, a brief loosening around the eyes. He turned to the men behind him. "Check the cameras. Every exit since midnight. Quietly." The older guard nodded and walked away. The younger one stayed. Elena closed the door, enough to block Dante's view of the room. "I need to know whether the ceremony is still happening." "It is." "The bride is missing." "She will be found." That sounds like confidence. It's a decision. Elena had managed weddings through hurricanes, family feuds, collapsed cakes, drunken best men, and one groom who had been arrested during cocktail hour. She knew the difference between confidence and denial. Dante Valenti was not in denial. He had expected trouble. "Did Camille have enemies?" she asked. "Everyone in that room tonight has enemies." "That wasn't my question." His attention sharpened. Behind Elena, the bride's phone began to ring. Both men heard it. Elena turned. The screen glowed on the vanity. Unknown caller. Dante moved forward. Elena blocked him with one hand against the door. "This suite is under my control. until the bride arrives. The younger guard gave a quiet, humorless laugh. Dante looked down at Elena's hand, then back at her face. "You're stopping me from entering my fiancé's room. I'm stopping 3 men from trampling possible evidence." The guard's amusement vanished. Dante studied her for a long second, then raised one hand. The guard stepped back. "Answer it," Dante said. Elena crossed the room and put the call on speaker. No one spoke at first. A faint sound traveled through the phone, water dripping, a distant metallic hum. Then a woman whispered, "Cancel the wedding." Elena glanced at Dante. His face did not move, but his right hand closed slowly at his side. "Camille?" Elena asked. The caller inhaled sharply. "He knows what happened in Palermo." The line went dead. Dante reached for the phone. Elena picked it up first. "Who knows what happened in Palermo?" He looked at her, as though deciding how much danger she could survive. Before he answered, the lights went out. The suite fell into darkness. A crash sounded near the balcony. Elena dropped the clipboard and moved toward the wall, remembering the room's layout. Dante caught her wrist before she reached the windows. "Stay behind me. I know where the emergency switch is." So does whoever cut the power. The balcony doors burst inward. Rain-scented air swept through the room. The younger guard drew a gun. Dante pulled Elena behind the stone column beside the bedroom entrance as a shadow crossed the balcony. A shot cracked. Glass shattered above the vanity. Elena flinched but did not scream. Dante's arm came around her shoulders, shielding her as the guard fired twice toward the open doors. The shadow disappeared. Emergency lights blinked red along the floor. Dante released Elena and strode to the balcony. He looked down over the railing, then toward the neighboring rooftop. "No body," he said. The guard touched his earpiece. "Security is locking the building." Elena stared at the bullet hole in the wall. It sat precisely where Dante's head had been moments before. The missing bride was no longer the only problem. Dante picked up the fallen clipboard and handed it to her. "You're leaving." "No, that wasn't a request. The ballroom is being dressed. The caterer arrives at 9. Your guests will notice if the wedding planner vanishes." "My guests notice weakness. They won't notice you." Elena lifted her chin. "Then you hired the wrong planner." For the first time, Dante looked at her without assessing a threat. His gaze paused, taking in the stubborn set of her mouth, the rain-damp curls escaping her pinned hair, the steady hand holding the clipboard despite the gunfire. "Why did you accept this wedding?" he asked. "Your assistant paid my full rate. You knew who I was. I knew you were difficult." A quiet sound came from the guard. He disguised it as a cough. Dante ignored him. "Someone just tried to kill me. And someone may have hurt your bride. Neither problem improves if your wedding collapses publicly." She walked to the balcony and examined the broken lock without touching it. A thin silver wire clung to the frame. Elena pointed. "This wasn't forced from outside." Dante approached. "The wire was looped through the handle," she continued. "Someone prepared the doors from inside, then pulled them open remotely during the blackout. The shooter knew the room. The shooter may have been in the room before I arrived." Dante's gaze shifted to the bedroom safe. Elena saw it. He had noticed the missing veil. "What did you find?" She considered lying, then remembered the woman on the phone. "He knows what happened in Palermo." Elena unlocked the safe and removed the garment bag. Dante stared at the blood on the lace. His restraint fractured for less than a second. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkened. "Is it hers?" he asked. "I don't know." He reached toward the veil, stopping before his fingers touched it. The gesture told Elena more than a confession could have. Whatever Dante felt for Camille, guilt lived beside it. A knock sounded from the corridor. The older guard returned, breathing harder than before. "We reviewed the cameras," he said. "Miss Ashford never entered the hotel last night." Elena looked toward the shoes, the phone, the wedding dress hanging behind the bedroom door. "Then who prepared this suite?" "No staff member admits to doing it," the guard said. Dante turned to the vanity. The bride's phone lit again. This time a message appeared. "Ask the planner why she changed her name." Silence filled the suite. Dante read the words once. Then he looked at Elena. She felt the past rise inside her, not as memory, but as cold pressure beneath her ribs. The younger guard moved closer. "What was your name before Marlowe?" Elena kept her eyes on Dante. "That has nothing to do with your missing bride." "Someone believes it does," Dante said. Rain blew through the broken balcony doors, lifting the edge of the blood-stained veil between them. Elena had spent 11 years building a life no one could take from her. A business, a reputation, a name that belonged only to her. She had never told a client about the fire in Palermo. She had never told anyone about the man who had carried her from it, or the black ring she had taken from his lifeless hand. Now that same ring sat hidden in the lining of her emergency sewing pouch, and Dante Valenti wore its twin. Dante's gaze dropped to Elena's sewing pouch. The movement was almost invisible, but she saw it. So did the younger guard. He stepped forward. Dante raised one hand. The guard stopped. "Elena," Dante said, his voice quieter now, "open the pouch." "No." The word landed cleanly between them. Rain tapped against the broken balcony doors. Somewhere below, hotel staff rolled silverware carts through service corridors, unaware that a sniper had fired into the bridal suite. Dante's eyes stayed on hers. "The message named you. The message was designed to make you suspicious. That does not make it false." "No, it makes it useful." The older guard glanced toward the hallway. "We should move. This room is compromised." Dante did not look away from Elena. "What was your former name?" She tightened her grip around the pouch. 11 years ago, men with Valenti rings had stood outside a burning villa, while her mother screamed from the second floor. 11 years ago, someone had dragged Elena through shattered glass and carried her toward the sea. She had never seen his face clearly. Only blood on his collar. Only the ring. "Elena Russo," she said. The name seemed to alter the air. The younger guard swore under his breath. Dante's expression did not change, but the older man behind him went pale. Elena noticed. "You know it," she said. The older guard looked at Dante before answering. "There was a Russo family in Palermo. There were thousands. Not like yours." Dante moved closer. "Your father was Matteo Russo." It was not a question. Elena felt the old instinct to deny everything, to bury the name again. But the phone message had already opened the grave. "My father imported marble. He moved information," Dante said. "Marble was the cover. My father died before I was old enough to understand his business. He did not die." The room went still. Elena's fingers loosened around the pouch. Dante continued. "He disappeared. I saw his body. Did you see his face?" The question struck too precisely. She had been 16. Smoke had filled the villa's entrance hall. A body had lain beneath a white sheet, one hand exposed, wearing her father's watch. No one had allowed her to lift the cloth. Her mother had said there was nothing left worth seeing. Elena swallowed. Dante watched her answer form before she spoke. "You knew him," she said. "My father did." The lights flickered back on. The sudden brightness revealed dust from the bullet-shattered wall floating between them. Dante turned to the older guard. "Marco, Clear the private elevator. Move everyone to the east security floor." Marco touched his earpiece and left. The younger guard remained by the door. Dante nodded toward him. "Luca, contact the harbor office. Ask whether any Valenti vessels arrived from Sicily in the last 72 hours. Luca hesitated. "You think this came from Palermo?" "I think someone wants us to think it did." Luca left without another word. Elena looked at Dante. "You still haven't answered my question." "Which one?" "Why did a man with your family's ring carry me out of that fire?" A muscle shifted in his jaw. "You remember the ring." "I kept it." Dante's restraint cracked again. Not fear, recognition. Elena opened the sewing pouch and removed a narrow black velvet case hidden beneath spare buttons and thread. She set it on the vanity and lifted the lid. The ring inside was heavy, black and silver. A crowned serpent curved around a small red stone. Dante slowly removed the ring from his own hand. The designs matched. His was newer, polished, the red stone unbroken. Elena's had a deep scratch across the serpent's head. "Who did it belong to?" she asked. Dante did not touch the old ring. "My brother." Elena stared at him. "You said he died." "I didn't say anything about him. But he is dead." Dante's silence answered. The woman on the phone had mentioned Palermo. The message had exposed Elena's name. Now, a dead Valenti brother stood at the center of both. What was his name? Adrian. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. Adrian. A voice surfaced from smoke and heat. "Keep your eyes closed, Elena." She had spent years believing those words belonged to a dream. Dante saw something change in her face. "You remember him?" "Not clearly." "He was 23. He had been sent to speak with your father." "About what?" Dante looked toward the blood-stained veil. "Peace." A knock came from the open door. A hotel employee stood in the corridor, holding a cream envelope with both hands. His face was drained of color. "This was delivered to the wedding office," he said. "The courier said it had to go directly to Miss Marlowe." "Where is the courier?" Dante asked. "He left." "Description?" "Gray coat, hat." "I didn't see his face." Dante took the envelope, but Elena reached for it. "My name is on it." "That is exactly why I'm opening it." He tore the flap. Inside was a photograph. Dante looked at it first. Then he handed it to Elena. The picture showed Camille Ashford standing beside a fountain at night. The image had been taken recently. She wore the white coat Elena had seen during their final dress fitting. A man stood beside her, his face turned partly away. Matteo Russo, Elena's father. Older, thinner, grey at the temples. Alive. Her knees threatened to weaken, but she locked them. The date printed on the bottom corner was 3 days earlier. "Could it be altered?" she asked. "Yes." "You don't believe that?" "No." On the back of the photograph, someone had written a single line. "The bride knows where he is." Elena read it twice. Camille had known her father. Camille had chosen Elena as the wedding planner. The recommendation had come through an anonymous private client who had insisted on paying a deposit before Elena ever met the bride. None of it had been chance. Dante took the photograph back. "Your father's disappearance was connected to my brother's death." Elena forced herself to breathe evenly. "How?" "Adrian entered the Russo villa. The house burned before he came out." "He came out. He carried me. He died on the road to the hospital." The scarred ring waited on the vanity. Elena looked at it and saw a young man bleeding into his shirt, spending the last of his strength on a frightened girl. "Why would anyone want us together now?" she asked. Dante turned the photograph over again. "That is the right question." A burst of voices sounded in the corridor. Marco returned with 2 security officers and a woman in a hotel uniform. "We found her in the laundry room," he said. The woman's wrists were bruised. A strip of silver fabric clung to her sleeve. Elena recognized her as a member of the bridal team. "Rosa?" The woman's mouth trembled. "I didn't know what they were planning." Dante's voice hardened. "Who?" Rosa looked toward the armed men and recoiled. Elena stepped between them. "Look at me," she said. Rosa's eyes found hers. "You're safe for this moment. Tell me what happened." Rosa swallowed. "A woman paid me to arrange the bridal suite. She said Miss Ashford wanted privacy." "What woman?" "She wore a veil." Marco frowned. "A veil?" "Black lace. I never saw her face." Elena remembered the bride's shoes, phone, dress, and blood-stained veil, arranged like pieces on a stage. "Did she give you the blood?" Rosa shook her head rapidly. "There was no blood when I left." "What did she ask you to place in the room?" "The phone, the dress, the shoes." Rosa's gaze dropped. "And a key." "What key?" Dante asked. Rosa reached into her uniform pocket. Marco caught her wrist before she could pull anything out. He removed a small brass key and placed it on the table. The number 418 was engraved on its round head. Elena knew the Belladonna's floor plan. "There is no room 418, she said. The hotel skipped the number 4 in guest areas. The 4th floor contained offices, storage spaces, and maintenance access. Dante looked at Marco. "Find the lock." Marco left with the officers. Rosa grabbed Elena's forearm. "The woman told me something else." Elena felt the cold pressure of her fingers. "What?" "She said if the groom asked about Palermo, I had to tell him the bride was already dead." Dante's face became unreadable. Rosa began to cry. "I thought it was some kind of family test. Rich people do strange things before weddings." A sharp electronic tone came from the bride's phone. A video file had arrived. Dante played it. Camille appeared on screen, seated against a concrete wall. Her hair was tangled. One side of her face was bruised. She wore the same white coat from the photograph. A digital clock behind her showed 8:17 a.m. The current time was 8:14. The recording came from 3 minutes in the future. Camille looked directly into the camera. "Dante, do not believe Elena Russo." Elena's breath caught. Camille continued. "Her father ordered Adrian's death." The screen went black. Rosa crossed herself. Dante replayed the video, his attention fixed on the digital clock. Elena watched his face instead. "You believe her," she said. "I believe she was forced to say something. But not necessarily that. No." The answer came too quickly. Elena stepped back. "Your men should search me. Then they should escort me out." Dante turned toward her. "You are not leaving. You suspected me before the video. I suspected everyone. Now your missing fiancé has accused my father of killing your brother. My fiancé may be bait. And what am I?" His eyes held hers. The reason the trap exists. The words should have frightened her. Instead, they confirmed what she had already understood. Camille's disappearance was not meant to stop a wedding. It was meant to bring Dante Valenti and Elena Russo into the same room, place old blood between them, then wait for one of them to strike. Dante handed the phone to Luca, who had returned unnoticed. "Trace the upload." Luca looked grim. "There's something else. The harbor office found a Valenti vessel registered under an inactive company. It docked at 4:40 this morning. Cargo? 1 passenger. Name?" Luca glanced at Elena. "Matteo Russo." The world narrowed to the sound of rain. Elena stared at him. "Where is he now?" The passenger was taken into a black car. Traffic cameras lost it near the hotel. A distant alarm sounded. Not the fire alarm. The service elevator alarm. Marco's voice came through Dante's earpiece, broken by static. We found the door for 418. Then came a crash. Gunfire. The connection died. Dante drew his weapon and moved toward the corridor. Elena followed. He turned sharply. "Stay here. My father may be behind that door, and someone is waiting for you to open it. That means I'm the only person who should." For 1/10 second, neither moved. Then Dante removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, covering the bright navy fabric of her dress. "Walk behind me," he said. "That isn't agreement. It's the closest you'll get." They entered the service corridor together. At the end of the hall, the elevator doors stood open. Inside, written across the mirrored wall in blood, were 5 words. "Welcome back, Elena Russo." The words on the elevator mirror were still wet. "Welcome back, Elena Russo." Dante stepped in first, gun raised. Elena followed, one hand gripping the brass key, the other holding his jacket closed over her dress. Marco lay beside the control panel. Blood darkened his shirt at the shoulder, but his eyes were open. "Shooter went through the maintenance hatch," he said through clenched teeth. "I hit him once." Dante crouched beside him. "Can you move?" "I can complain." "That means yes." Luca pressed a folded cloth against Marco's wound, while Dante examined the elevator ceiling. The hatch hung open. A narrow ladder disappeared into darkness above them. Elena looked at the message again. The blood had been applied with 2 fingers. The letters leaned slightly right. Her father had written birthday cards the same way. She stepped closer. Dante caught her elbow. "Don't touch it." "I'm not going to." "You recognize the handwriting." Elena stared at the final O in Russo. Matteo always left the circle open at the top, as if every word needed an escape route. "Yes." Luca looked up. "Your father wrote that." Either he did, or someone had access to enough of his writing to imitate it. Dante studied her face. "Which do you believe?" Elena did not answer. She no longer knew what belief required. The service elevator descended without anyone pressing a button. The doors closed. Marco reached for the panel. "Controls are dead." The floor indicator changed. B. Dante pulled Elena behind him. When the doors opened, the basement corridor beyond was empty. A fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Water pipes rattled behind the walls. At the far end stood a grey door with a small brass plate. "There it is," Elena said. "That room should not exist," Luca replied. The belladonna had been renovated twice. Elena had reviewed every architectural plan before accepting the wedding. No room 418 appeared on any blueprint. Dante signaled for Luca to remain with Marco. Then he and Elena moved down the corridor. The brass key fit the lock. Before she turned it, Dante placed his hand over hers. "If there is a trigger mechanism, I know." "Do you?" Elena looked at him. His face remained controlled, but his thumb pressed against her knuckles, as though he could keep her from vanishing through sheer force. She turned the key slowly. Nothing clicked, except the lock. Dante opened the door. The room beyond was not a storage space. It was a chapel. Small, windowless, forgotten. Dust covered 6 wooden pews. A stone altar stood beneath a cracked mural of a saint with burned-away eyes. Dozens of candles had been lit along the walls, their flames bending in the stale air. At the altar waited a wedding bouquet. White roses, black ribbon. Elena walked toward it. Dante remained half a step behind her. A photograph rested beneath the bouquet. This one was older. It showed 2 young men standing on the steps of a Sicilian villa. One was Dante Valenti, recognizable from the family resemblance, the same severe brow, the same dark eyes, but softened by youth. The other man was Matteo Russo. They were smiling. Not acquaintances, friends. Elena turned the photograph over. 2 names had been written across the back. Adrian Valenti, Matteo Russo. Underneath, in different ink, brothers until blood decides otherwise. Dante took the photograph. My father told me they were negotiating peace. They look like they already had it. He lied about many things. The admission came without defense. Elena looked toward the altar. Did your father order the attack on my family? Dante did not answer at once. The candlelight moved across his face, revealing exhaustion beneath his restraint. When Adrian died, my father said Matteo betrayed him. He ordered every Russo asset seized and every surviving ally hunted. My mother was not an ally. In his world, blood made her one. Elena felt the old fire return in fragments. Curtains burning upward, her mother pushing her toward the cellar, men shouting outside. Did you know? She asked. I was 17. That is not an answer. No, Dante said. I did not know until years later. But you continued his empire. I dismantled parts of it. Parts. The parts I could remove without starting a war that would kill more people. There was no pride in his voice, only arithmetic. A floorboard creaked behind the altar. Dante moved instantly, pulling Elena to the side as a hidden panel opened. A man stumbled through. Grey coat, blood on his sleeve. The courier. He raised a pistol. Dante fired first. The bullet struck the man's wrist. His weapon clattered across the stone floor. Elena kicked it beneath a pew before he could reach it. Dante forced him to his knees. Who sent you? The courier laughed through shallow breaths. You still think this is about the bride? Dante pressed the barrel beneath his jaw. Answer. The man's eyes moved toward Elena. Ask her father. Where is Matteo Russo? Closer than you think. His gaze shifted to the candles. Elena followed it. One candle burned lower than the rest. A thin wire ran from its metal base beneath the altar. Dante. He saw it. The courier smiled. Move. Dante dragged Elena behind the stone altar as a blast tore through the rear wall. The chapel filled with dust, heat, and splintered wood. Elena struck the floor hard. Her ears rang. Dante covered her body with his, one arm braced above her head, as debris fell around them. For several seconds, there was only noise. Then silence. Dante lifted himself enough to look at her. A cut ran across his temple. Are you hurt? Elena shook her head. His hand moved to her cheek, checking for blood. The touch lingered. Not because either of them mistook terror for desire. Because he needed proof she was still there. A groan came from the ruined aisle. The courier was alive. Barely. Dante left Elena behind the altar and crossed to him. The man's coat had torn open. Beneath it, stitched into the lining, was a symbol Elena recognized. A crowned serpent. But the stone in its center was blue, not red. Dante cut the patch free. This is not Valenti, he said. What is it? Elena asked. An old faction, the Orsini Circle. The courier began to laugh again, blood at the corner of his mouth. You buried them, he whispered. I buried their leaders. No, you buried their sons. Dante's face hardened. The man looked toward Elena. Your father promised justice. For whom? She asked. The courier smiled. For Adrian. His body went still. Elena stared at him. Every version of the past contradicted the one before it. Her father had supposedly killed Adrian. Now a dying man claimed Matteo wanted justice for him. Dante searched the courier's pockets and found a small digital recorder. He pressed play. Static filled the chapel. Then Matteo Russo's voice emerged. older, rougher, but unmistakable. If Elena hears this, tell her I am sorry. Tell her I should have come back. Tell her Adrian died because he discovered what Vincenzo Valenti planned to do. Dante's fingers tightened around the recorder. His father's name seemed louder than the explosion. The recording continued. Camille Ashford is not the victim. She is the witness. She has the ledger. Do not let Dante marry her until he knows who she really is. A crash sounded from the corridor. Luca shouted, "Dante!" They ran back through the broken chapel door. Marco was gone. A smear of blood led from the elevator into a side passage. Luca stood with his weapon drawn. Two men came through the utility tunnel. They took him. Dante's face emptied, not of feeling, of mercy. The bride's phone rang in Elena's pocket. She had forgotten Dante had given it to her before entering the elevator. The screen displayed a live video call. Elena answered. Camille appeared under harsh white light. This time, she was not bruised. Her hair was smooth, her white coat was gone. She wore a black dress and diamond earrings. Behind her, Marco sat tied to a chair. Blood soaked the bandage at his shoulder. Camille smiled. You found the chapel. Dante took the phone from Elena. Release him. Camille tilted her head. You always begin with commands. Name your price. My price died 11 years ago. Elena stepped closer. Who are you? Camille's eyes shifted to her. You truly don't remember me. Elena studied her face. The elegant cheekbones, the pale eyes, the small scar near her left ear, usually concealed beneath her hair. A girl had stood beside Elena at the Palermo villa. A girl in a yellow dress, holding Adrian's hand. Then the fire had started. No, Elena whispered. Camille's smile vanished. My name was Sofia Orsini. Dante's breath stopped. Elena remembered the yellow dress burning at the hem. Adrian lifting the girl over a garden wall. Elena screaming for her mother. Sofia had survived. Camille brought the camera closer. Adrian Valenti was not your brother by blood, Dante. Dante did not move. He was Matteo Russo's son. The statement struck the room like a second explosion. Elena stared at the phone. Adrian, her father's son, her brother, the man who had carried her out of the fire. Camille watched the truth break across both their faces. Your fathers built their empires on the same lie, she said. Tonight, every person who profited from it will be inside your ballroom. She turned the camera toward Marco. A wire had been fastened around his chest. Red numbers counted down on a small device. 01:59:44. Camille faced them again. The wedding begins at 6. The call ended. Dante lowered the phone. For the first time since Elena had met him, his hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the collapse of everything he had been taught to hate. Elena reached for the recorder still clenched in his fist. Their fingers touched. Neither pulled away. Dante looked at her, grief and fury held behind his eyes like a storm trapped beneath glass. If Adrian was your brother, he said, then my father built our family on his murder. Elena glanced at the countdown frozen on the dark phone screen. And Camille intends to make us pay for it. The countdown continued, even after the screen went dark. 1:59:43. 01:59:42. Elena could hear each second inside her chest. Dante turned toward Luca. Lock every entrance to the ballroom. No guests enter until they have been screened. Luca hesitated. If we cancel publicly, Camille will know. We are not cancelling. Elena looked at him. There is a bomb strapped to Marco. And Camille expects panic. She also expects a wedding. Dante's gaze moved to the blood on the chapel floor, then to the cracked phone in Elena's hand. She wants every person connected to our families gathered in one place, he said. We give her the gathering. We change the ending. Luca nodded and left. Elena caught Dante's sleeve before he could follow. You are asking your guests to walk into a trap. I am asking guilty people to remain where I can see them. And the innocent ones. His silence sharpened the question. You cannot calculate everyone's survival, she said. I have done it all my life. That does not mean you have done it well. The words struck harder than she intended. Dante looked at her hand on his sleeve. She released him. A smear of his blood marked her fingers from the cut at his temple. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he took a clean handkerchief from his pocket and pressed it into her palm. My father taught me that sacrifice was proof of loyalty, he said. Every man he buried was called necessary. Elena closed her fingers around the cloth. What do you call it? Failure. The answer came without hesitation. A low vibration sounded beneath the chapel. Not machinery. Music. The string quartet had begun rehearsing in the ballroom above them. The first notes drifted through the pipes, elegant and distant, as though the hotel itself had forgotten what waited beneath it. Dante looked toward the ceiling. We have less than 2 hours. They returned to the security floor through a service stairwell. By 9 o'clock, the Belladonna no longer felt like a hotel preparing for a wedding. Men in dark suits occupied every corridor. Deliveries were opened, catalogued and scanned. Florists were searched. Kitchen staff surrendered phones. The guest list was cross-referenced against old Valenti records and the names found in Matteo Russo's files. Elena stood over the seating chart in the command room. Most wedding planners arranged guests to avoid embarrassing conversations. She was arranging them to expose murderers. Move Senator Holloway to table 6, she said, beside Vittorio Bellini. A security analyst looked up. They hate each other. Exactly. Dante entered, carrying a thin leather ledger. Dust coated its cover. Elena recognized the crowned serpent stamped into the center. Where did you find that? In my father's private archive. He placed it on the table. Inside were lists of payments, ports, judges, shipping routes, and names written in code. One entry had been circled repeatedly. AV/MRO project. What is the Orsini project? Elena asked. My father's name for a political alliance. With the Orsini family? With the people who destroyed them. Dante turned several pages. Dates appeared beside transfers to officials, prosecutors, and police commanders. The earliest payments began 6 months before the fire in Palermo. Elena found Camille's real name near the bottom of a page. Sofia Orsini, heir unconfirmed. Beside it was a note in Vincenzo Valenti's handwriting. Child must not surface. Elena's mouth went dry. She was hunted. For 11 years. By your father. And by everyone he paid. Dante closed the ledger. She did not create this war, Elena said. No. She survived it. Yes. Then part of what she wants is justice. Dante's eyes hardened. Justice does not wear explosives. No, revenge does. The distinction settled between them. Elena turned toward the seating chart again, but Dante remained beside her. What would you have done, he asked, if I had lost everyone? If you had lived under another name while the people responsible celebrated in public? Elena thought of the fire, of her mother's voice disappearing behind smoke, of the years she had spent building rooms where no one was allowed to lose control. I would have wanted them to suffer. That is not an answer. I do not know what I would have done. Dante watched her carefully. Elena met his gaze. That is the honest answer. The command room door opened. Luca entered with a hotel tablet. We traced the future timestamp on Camille's first video. How? Dante asked. It was not recorded in the future. The clock behind her was a digital display connected to a separate server. She adjusted it to make us believe she controlled time. Psychological pressure, Elena said. Luca nodded. But the upload contained a reflection. He enlarged a frame. A silver service cart appeared faintly in the mirror behind Camille. On its side was the Belladonna crest. She is still in the hotel, Elena said. Or she recorded it here earlier, Dante replied. Luca swiped to another image. The cart has today's pastry order on the lower shelf. It arrived at 7 this morning. Dante looked toward the floor plan. Find every room large enough to hold Marco that is connected to the internal network. There are 23. Elena studied the reflection. A strip of gold wallpaper showed beyond the cart. I know that pattern. Both men looked at her. The old honeymoon suite, 12th floor. It was closed during renovation because of water damage. Luca was already moving. Dante caught his arm. No team. Camille wants movement she can monitor. She has Marco. And she will kill him if she sees 10 armed men outside. Elena took off Dante's jacket and placed it across the table. I will go. Dante's answer came instantly. No. She chose me as the planner. She has been directing me from the beginning. That is why you do not go. That is why she may speak to me. She may shoot you. She could have done that in the chapel. Dante stepped closer. You are not bait. Neither is Marco. The room fell silent. Luca looked away. Dante's voice dropped. You think because I will not abuse you, I cannot stop you. No. I think you know I am right. He held her gaze for several seconds. Then he opened the ledger, tore out the page naming Sophia, and folded it into Elena's hand. If she speaks to you, show her this. What does it prove? That my father feared she was the rightful heir to something larger than a dead family. The old honeymoon suite stood at the end of an abandoned corridor. Wallpaper peeled from the walls. Plastic sheets covered the furniture. The air smelled of damp plaster and cold metal. Elena approached alone. A camera above the door turned to follow her. She raised both hands. Sophia. A speaker crackled. That name sounds strange in your voice. Elena stopped beneath the camera. Camille was easier. Camille was useful. Is Marco alive? For now. Then let me see him. The door unlocked. Inside, candles burned across the suite. Marco sat in the center of the room, still tied to the chair. The explosive device remained fixed around his chest. Its timer read 43 minutes. Sophia stood behind him holding a pistol. Without the bridal clothes and practiced elegance, she looked younger, more tired. The scar near her ear was fully visible. Elena entered slowly. The door locked behind her. You remember the garden wall, Sophia said. Pieces of it. You screamed when Adrian lifted me over. I thought he was leaving me behind. He came back for you. Elena looked at Marco. His face was pale, but he gave the smallest nod. Why did Adrian return? Sophia's expression shifted. Because Matteo begged him to save you. My father was there. He started the fire. Elena stared at her. No. He set the West Wing ablaze to destroy the ledger. You said Vincenzo planned it. He did. Matteo discovered the plan and tried to erase the evidence before Vincenzo's men arrived. With people still inside, he believed the villa had been cleared. My mother was inside. Sophia's voice softened. I know. The softness was worse than cruelty. Elena felt the room lose focus at its edges. All these years she had blamed faceless men. Now her father's hand held the match. Where is Matteo? Sophia smiled without warmth, still protecting himself. You brought him to New York. He brought himself. Then why has he not shown his face? Because cowards prefer daughters to carry their shame. Elena unfolded the ledger page. Sophia's eyes changed when she saw her real name. Elena held it out. Vincenzo knew you were alive. Sophia did not take the page. He knew I had a claim. To what? Everything. The answer came from behind Elena. The door opened. Matteo Russo entered. He looked older than the photograph. His shoulders had narrowed, and a scar ran from his throat into his collar. But his eyes were unchanged. Elena knew them immediately. Her father stopped when he saw her. Elena. She did not move toward him. He took one step. She raised a hand. No. The word seemed to age him another decade. Sophia's pistol shifted toward him. You are late, she said. I came as soon as I learned she was here. You knew she would be here. You recommended her. Elena turned to him. You arranged the wedding contract. Matteo said nothing. You used my company to bring me into this. I needed Dante to trust someone outside his family. You needed me close enough to die with him. No. The denial was immediate. Too immediate. Sophia laughed. Tell her. Matteo looked at Elena, and she saw the truth before he spoke. The bomb is not on Marco. Marco's eyes widened. Sophia's smile disappeared. Matteo pointed toward the wall. The device on him is a relay. A red light blinked inside the gilded molding. Elena followed the line of wiring through the ceiling. The ballroom, she whispered. Matteo nodded. The main charge is beneath it. Sophia raised the pistol toward him. You said the explosives would be used only if Dante refused the confession. I lied. You planned to kill everyone. I planned to kill the men who ordered Palermo. There are staff upstairs, Elena said. Musicians, servers, guests who had nothing to do with it. Matteo's face tightened. There is no clean justice. Dante's words returned to her. Every man he buried was called necessary. Elena stared at her father. You sound like Vincenzo. The sentence broke something in him. Sophia's hand trembled around the pistol. You knew, she said to Matteo. You knew he was going to use all of us. I knew Vincenzo would never stop while the ledger existed. So you burned it. I burned a copy. You killed Adrian. No, Matteo's voice cracked. Adrian came back into the house after I lit the fire. He went for Elena. And you left him. I thought he was already outside. You always think people are safe when you abandon them. Sophia fired. Elena moved before she understood the choice. She struck Sophia's wrist. The bullet hit the ceiling. Marco threw his weight sideways, dragging the chair down as Matteo lunged for the gun. The room erupted into motion. Sophia kicked Matteo in the knee. He fell. Elena grabbed the pistol, but Sophia caught her hair and pulled her backward. Elena drove her elbow into Sophia's ribs. The gun slid across the floor. Marco shouted, Timer! The display dropped rapidly. 000459. 000458. Sophia stared at it. That is not my sequence. Matteo crawled toward the relay. I changed it. Elena looked at her father. How do we stop it? You cannot. A shot cracked from the doorway. The relay box exploded in sparks. Dante stood there, gun raised. Luca moved behind him and cut Marco free. Dante crossed the room and seized Matteo by the collar. You armed a bomb beneath my ballroom. Matteo looked at him without fear. Your ballroom is full of murderers. It is also full of people who carried their trays. Dante dragged him toward the broken relay. Disarm it. The trigger is independent. Then where is it? Matteo smiled faintly. Inside the wedding ring, everyone looked at Dante's hand, the black serpent ring. Its red stone had begun to pulse. Dante tore it off. Matteo lunged. He snatched the ring from Dante's palm and ran toward the open window. Elena caught his arm. For 1 second, father and daughter stood face to face. "Let go," Matteo said. "Where are you taking it?" "Away from you." "Why should I believe you?" "You should not." He pulled free and climbed onto the ledge. Far below, the hotel's glass roof covered the ballroom. The timer reached 1 minute. Dante moved toward them. Matteo looked at Elena. "I did not come back because I believed surviving made me guilty. It did." Pain moved across his face. Then he jumped. Elena screamed his name. Matteo fell onto the lower service roof, rolled hard, and disappeared beyond the edge, with the ring clenched in his hand. The timer on Marco's device froze. 00:017. Silence filled the suite. Luca checked his earpiece. The signal is gone. Elena stared through the window. No movement came from below. Dante stepped beside her, close enough that his shoulder touched hers. He did not tell her it would be all right. He did not offer a lie. His hand opened between them. Elena placed hers inside it. Behind them, Sophia sank to the floor. "It is not over," she said. Dante turned. Sophia looked toward the wedding dress hanging in the corner. Elena had not noticed it before. It was not Camille's gown. It was her mother's. Smoke stains marked the hem. A folded note had been pinned over the heart. Elena removed it with shaking fingers. The message was written in her mother's hand. "My daughter must never learn who ordered Adrian to return for her." Elena read the line again. Then she looked at Sophia. "Who ordered him?" Sophia lifted her eyes. "Your mother." Elena read the note once more. "My daughter must never learn who ordered Adrian to return for her." The paper trembled between her fingers. Sophia remained on the floor, watching. Dante stood beside Elena without touching her now. He understood that some truths arrived like wounds, and pressure only drove them deeper. "My mother sent him back," Elena said. Sophia nodded. "Why?" "Because she knew the fire was not an accident." Elena looked at the smoke-stained dress. "My father said he believed the villa had been cleared. He was told it had been." Sophia's voice had lost its sharpness. "Your mother discovered servants were still inside. So were you." She tried to reach Matteo, but he had already gone to destroy the ledger. "And Adrian?" "He was outside with me." Memory returned in a flash. The garden wall. Adrian's hands lifting Sophia, her mother standing at an upstairs window, pounding against the glass. "Your mother called his name," Sophia continued. He looked back. She pointed toward the cellar entrance. Elena closed her eyes. "Keep your eyes closed, Elena." Adrian had carried her through smoke because her mother had sent him. Not because of blood, not because of obligation, because he had chosen to return. "What happened to my mother?" Elena asked. Sophia looked toward Matteo's empty place by the window. "She survived the first fire." Elena's eyes opened. Dante turned sharply. "What?" Matteo found her in the east courtyard. She was injured, but alive. He arranged transport to a private clinic. "Then why did he tell me she died?" Sophia's mouth tightened. "Because she knew who ordered the attack." A noise came from the corridor. Luca entered, breathing hard. "We found Matteo." Elena's fingers closed around the note. "Alive?" "Yes." He landed on a maintenance canopy. Broken leg, internal injuries, but alive. Dante's gaze hardened. "And the ring?" "Recovered. The signal module is damaged." "Ballroom?" Bomb squad found the main charge beneath the stage. They are disarming it now. Elena looked at the timer still strapped to Marco's chair. 00017. 17 seconds from death. Sophia stared at the frozen numbers. I never agreed to kill the staff, she said. Dante faced her. You tied an injured man to an explosive relay. I needed you to listen. You had 11 years to find another method. I had 11 years of being hunted by your father's friends. And now? Sophia looked toward the ledger page on the floor. Now they are all upstairs. The guests. The judges, politicians, financiers, and old family allies who believed they had arrived to witness a marriage. Dante turned to Luca. Has anyone left? No. Keep it that way. Sophia gave a bitter laugh. You cannot execute an entire ballroom. No, Dante said. I am going to make them confess. The Belladonna ballroom glittered beneath thousands of suspended lights. At 6 o'clock, every guest sat in silence. No orchestra played. No champagne was served. Security guards stood at every exit. On the stage, the wedding arch remained covered in white roses, but the altar had been removed. In its place stood a projector screen and a long table holding copies of Vincenzo Valenti's ledger. Elena entered first. She had changed out of her damaged navy dress and into a simple black gown from the hotel boutique. Her curves were not hidden beneath it, nor softened for anyone else's comfort. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders. The scarred ring rested inside her closed hand. Whispers spread across the room. The wedding planner had become the center of the ceremony. Dante walked beside her. He wore the same charcoal suit, now marked with dust and blood. No one mistook the stains for weakness. Sophia followed under guard. She had refused handcuffs. Dante had permitted the refusal only because Elena asked him to. When they reached the stage, Elena looked across the room. Senator Holloway sat beside Vittorio Bellini, each man avoiding the other's gaze. A retired prosecutor leaned toward an exit already blocked by 2 guards. 3 former Valenti advisors whispered at a table near the back. Guilty people rarely needed to be told when judgment entered a room. Dante stepped to the microphone. There will be no wedding tonight. A murmur rose. He waited until it died. My father built his power through bribery, murder, trafficking, political coercion, and the destruction of families whose property he wanted. The retired prosecutor stood. You cannot detain us without cause. Dante looked at him. Sit down, Mr. Caro. I am leaving. A second screen illuminated behind him. Footage showed Caro accepting a case file from Vincenzo Valenti in a parking garage 20 years earlier. Caro stopped moving. Dante continued. Copies of this ledger, along with recordings, payment records, and witness statements, have already been sent to federal authorities and 6 independent journalists. Shock moved through the room. Elena glanced at him. This had not been part of their plan. He had done it before entering the ballroom. He had surrendered the shield his empire depended on. Senator Holloway rose. You understand that those files implicate you as well? Yes. Dante's answer silenced everyone. I inherited companies funded by criminal money. I protected people who should have been prosecuted. I concealed violence to prevent retaliation, then called the silence peace. Luca watched him from the edge of the stage. Even his expression changed. Dante looked across the room. I will answer for what I did. Vittorio Bellini leaned back. And you expect applause? No. Dante's gaze became colder. I expect fear. The ballroom doors opened. Federal agents entered. Not Valenti men. Not family loyalists. Agents. Conversations shattered into panic. Chairs scraped. Several guests reached for phones that no longer connected to the hotel network. Elena looked at Dante. You contacted them. This afternoon. You knew they might arrest you. Yes. And you said nothing. You would have tried to change my mind. I would have demanded the choice to stand beside you. His eyes held hers. That is why I said nothing. Anger rose in her, sharp and clean. Then she understood. Dante had spent his life treating protection as control. Even now, at the moment he tried to become a different man, the old instinct remained. You do not protect me by deciding what I can survive, she said. He lowered his gaze. No. It was the first time she had heard him surrender without strategy. An agent approached the stage. We need Dante Valenti, Sofia Orsini, and Elena Russo for formal statements. Sofia's shoulders stiffened. Elena stepped beside her. She cooperates with counsel. The agent looked at Dante. Dante answered, You heard her. Sofia turned to Elena. Why are you helping me? I am not excusing you. That was not my question. Elena opened her hand. Adrian's damaged ring rested in her palm. You survived the same night I did, she said. I will not let the truth bury another survivor. Sofia stared at the ring. Then she began to cry. Not elegantly, not quietly. Her knees weakened, and Elena caught her before she reached the floor. Across the room, agents began separating guests. Names were called. Evidence bags appeared. The wedding became an arrest operation, every table revealing another hidden alliance. Yet one question remained unanswered. Elena leaned close to Sofia. My mother, where was the clinic? Sofia wiped her face with the back of her hand. I do not know. Matteo hid her location even from me. Why? Because she made him promise. Promise what? Sofia looked toward the ballroom entrance. That he would keep you away until Vincenzo was dead. A wheelchair appeared in the doorway. An older woman sat beneath a pale wool blanket. Her hair had turned silver. A burn scar traced one side of her neck. Matteo, strapped to a medical stretcher behind her, looked barely conscious. Elena stopped breathing. The woman searched the ballroom. Her eyes found Elena immediately. A mother did not need a name. Elena, she whispered. The sound crossed 11 years. Elena walked at first. Then she ran. She dropped beside the wheelchair, pressing both hands over her mother's. The skin was thinner than she remembered. The warmth was not. Her mother touched Elena's face, following the line of her cheek, as if relearning every year she had missed. You became beautiful, she said. Elena shook her head, tears falling. You were alive. I wanted to come back. You should have. I know. No excuse. No request for instant forgiveness. Only truth. Elena rested her forehead against her mother's hands. Behind them, Matteo opened his eyes. Elena. She turned. He looked broken on the stretcher, though not broken enough to erase what he had done. I brought her here, he said. You also kept her from me. Yes. You used me. Yes. You armed a bomb. His eyes closed briefly. Yes. Elena stood. Matteo looked at her, as if waiting for a verdict. You will tell them everything, she said. Every name, every payment, every grave. I will. You will not call it sacrifice. His mouth trembled. No. And you will not ask me to forgive you. I won't. She placed Adrian's ring on his chest. You will spend what remains of your life honoring the son you abandoned. Matteo covered the ring with one hand. For the first time, he looked like a father rather than a strategist. Dante was arrested before midnight. He went without resistance. 3 months later, he testified against the remaining Valenti organization. 6 months after that, Prosecutors reduced the charges connected to the inherited businesses in exchange for full cooperation, asset surrender, and the dissolution of every criminal branch under his control. He lost hotels, ships, private estates, political influence. He kept one legitimate security company and a small house outside the city. Elena visited him there on the first day of spring. He opened the door, wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. No guards stood behind him. No ring marked his hand. "You came," he said. "You invited me. I was not certain that mattered." "It matters." She stepped inside. The house was quiet. A kettle warmed in the kitchen. On the table rested a newspaper announcing another wave of convictions tied to the Palermo ledger. Beside it sat a wedding brochure. Elena raised one eyebrow. Dante followed her gaze. "My mother's charity is holding a fundraiser. You need a planner. I was hoping for the best one. My rates have increased. I assumed they would." She looked around the room. "You gave up everything." "No." His eyes settled on her. "I gave up what was never mine." The silence between them no longer felt dangerous. It felt earned. Dante moved closer, but stopped before touching her. "I do not know how to ask for things without making them sound like orders." "Practice." A faint smile appeared. "Have dinner with me." That sounded almost normal. "Is that a yes?" Elena studied him. The dangerous man was still there. So was the strategist. But the man standing before her had chosen truth when it cost him power, justice when it exposed his crimes, and accountability when escape had been possible. Respect had come first, then trust. Protection had been stripped of control. Understanding had survived anger. Sacrifice had become responsibility. She placed her hand in his. Yes. 1 year later, Elena planned another wedding at the Belladonna. A smaller one. No senators. No secret ledgers. No armed men at the doors. Sofia stood beside Elena's mother in the front row. Marco, his shoulder healed, served as Dante's witness. Luca complained that the flowers were excessive, then adjusted every crooked chair himself. Matteo watched remotely from prison. Elena walked down the aisle alone. Not because no one could give her away, because she belonged to herself. Dante waited beneath an arch of white roses. When she reached him, he did not take her hand immediately. He offered his. Elena chose to accept it. The scarred ring that had once represented blood, betrayal, and inherited power had been melted down into 2 simple silver bands. No serpent, no crown. At the reception, Dante stood behind Elena while she looked over the ballroom she had once expected to see destroyed. "You are checking the exits," he murmured. "I am a wedding planner. You are the bride. Those are not opposites." His quiet laugh warmed the space between them. Elena turned. The man who had once believed love was another vulnerability, now looked at her without armor. She touched his cheek. Around them, music rose. Her mother danced with Marco. Sofia argued with Luca beside the cake. Guests filled the room with ordinary noise, the kind no one valued until they had survived silence. Dante lowered his forehead to Elena's. "No lies," he said. "No decisions made for me. No disappearing. No revenge disguised as justice." He nodded. "And when the past returns?" he asked. Elena looked across the ballroom at the people who had survived it. "We remember." Then she kissed him beneath the lights, not as a woman rescued by a powerful man, but as the woman who had stood beside him while they destroyed the throne built from their family's blood. Outside, morning rain began to fall over Manhattan. Inside, nothing remained hidden. And for the first time, no one needed to be afraid of what came next.